Hey guys, it's Robin Eckersley, and I am, messing around with some stuff here. So bear with me. I did a YouTube live as well, but I'm going to ditch that because the camera is actually backwards. So, okay, what I'm here today to do is to introduce to you the spectrum method. And this is a method that I have designed for people who are frustrated with the way of the world. They're upset and they're getting constantly worn down by the news coming out and just the way of how things are in the world at the moment. And they actually want to do something about it. So there's 5 steps to this process, and this spectrum method is actually part of a larger method called the VCR. So today I'm just going to use the spectrum method, like the specific spectrum, as a microcosm, as a way that you can start to take control over those emotions that are coming up and that are, wearing you down, and they're frustrating you, and they're a source of anger. So here's something that I hope you can use, and feel free to follow along. It's just going to be a demo. This is stuff that I work very intensively with my clients on. And so for today, I'm kicking off this video series. It's going to be twice a month. That's my aim. My aim is to present this method to you twice a month through Facebook Live, and then this video will be downloaded and then posted on YouTube as well. So hopefully it'll reach more people, and those people will be inspired to take action and to come into a place of agency instead of a place of feeling helpless. So for today, I am going to use the topic of family separation. If you have following the news at all, then you've heard about families being separated at the border of the United States, and there's a lot of stuff happening with that. So step 1 is to get clear on the issue. Which issue are we actually dealing with today? So step 1, clarity on the issue. So specifically, we're talking about family separation. We're not talking about anything else around that until a little bit. So we want to get specific about what we're starting with. So, and I have, if you see me looking off screen, I've prepared something for this just to kind of help the flow go a little bit quicker. If you work with me, we go way more in depth and it's not this fast. So for now, we're going to place family separation just here in the middle of the board, okay? This is our central topic, family separation. This is the main topic. So that's step 1, identifying and getting clear exactly on what we're going to be working with and what we're going to be talking about. Step 2 is going to be placing it on the spectrum. So place on the spectrum. The point of this is to acknowledge that large issues in the world are super complex, and there's not one quick, easy fix for anything. So in order for us to kind of tease this out and for us to identify where our agency is and where our possibilities for problem solving lie, we start to really stretch it out. We start to really dig into it. So, for example, around family separation, we are seeing the most prominent stuff is that we're seeing kids in cages, literally internment camps, tent cities, all of that. So we can sum that up. I'm just going to sum it up here of kids in cages. And what we start to do is we start to create a spectrum of what's going on. So to take a look at that, how did this come to be? Let's work it backwards, and then we'll work it forwards. Working it backwards, we're looking at separation of families and detainment. So this is the action that happens before this situation here. And how did this come to be? What came before the separation of families and detainment? We have families entering the United States, entering US. Okay. So something to note here is that when you're doing this method, it is helpful for you to be as objective as possible. Not this should be happening, this shouldn't be happening. This is an opportunity for you to state the facts. This is exactly what is happening. So families are coming into the border, regardless of what, coming across the border, regardless of what you think about that, irrelevant for today's exercise, irrelevant for this particular method. Separation of families and detainment. Families are being detained and they are being separated. That's just a fact. It doesn't matter what you feel about it, whether that should be happening or shouldn't be happening, irrelevant. So kids are they're existing right now and detained in like large pens. That's a fact, regardless of whether you feel what you feel about it, doesn't matter. So moving forward, what's coming after this situation is that there's an element of trauma that's happening. That's a real thing. That's a side effect of what's happening. Regardless of how severe you feel that trauma is, that is happening. When you separate children from parents, that's just what happens. And then now, with a recent executive order to reunite families, we're approaching reunification. Some of this is already happening. A lot of families still obviously have yet to be reunified. Families. So this is also on the spectrum. And then what else is happening? Yeah, so we're going to leave this at this. So you can kind of see it looks kind of like a timeline. It acts kind of as a timeline as well. So it's kind of like, okay, what's happening to get us to this place around this issue of family separation? What's the timeline? What's the spectrum? Now for this, it does happen sequentially. In this particular example, it doesn't happen that way all the time. So I'm just putting it up here that coincidentally it is consecutive behaviors or consecutive actions that are happening. Families are entering the US. What happens next is that they're being detained and separated. And then what happens next is that the kids are being housed in cages. What's happening next is that there's trauma that's being introduced as part of the situation. And then what's happening currently is that there is some kind of process to attempt the reunification of these families, get the kids back with their parents. Now, like I said, it's coincidental in this particular situation that it is on a timeline, but the spectrum is designed for you to take a look at really complex issues from a more comprehensive situation. And this, again, is to just regain your agency and to have you identify, okay, what can I do? Instead of, oh my gosh, family separation, I don't make laws, I can't do anything. It's very easy to feel helpless. It's very easy to feel like you have no agency in large situations like this. So step one, get clarity on the issue. Which issue are we dealing with today? It's family separation. Step two, place it on the spectrum. So you just kind of sketch this out here. And there's no right or wrong way. This is just getting objective about what's happening with this particular topic. Step three, before we get to step three, then we start to get clear around what else, kind of subtopics around these, each of these issues. So families entering the US, objectively, why are they entering the US? What is going on? So some are seeking asylum. Some are, let's see, how do we say this? Just trying to sneak in and stay. Some. What else is happening? Let me refer to my notes. This is also where we see local crisis and distress. These are contributing factors to this particular item. Why is this happening? Why does this exist in the first place? And this is where also you need to take a look at your beliefs around who is coming over and why they're coming over. So each of these becomes in turn kind of its own little like web of, it's like a web chart of that particular situation as a subset of this larger situation. So the next one is family detainment, family separation. Why is this happening? What's contributing to this particular aspect? Well, there's a, what's it called? Zero tolerance policy happening. Zero tolerance policy, so I'm going to put policy here. Policy is a contributing factor as to why families are being separated, why they're being detained. Let's see, family separation, policy. There's investigation into the parents. This is what's happening here as well. We're moving forward, children alone in cages, past internment policies. This is part of this particular piece of the pie, past internment policies. And let's see. Kids in cages. These are the facilities that are available. These are the facilities that have been set up. So it's not, summer camp. They're using facilities that are for mess facilities. Facilities are part of why they're specifically in cages and not in some kind of other living situation right now. Let's see, when we move over, and there's more to each of these just for the sake of time. I'm just going to do a couple for each of them. Around, okay, the trauma that's happening, the next step in the spectrum is because trauma is happening because of the conditions, because of the living conditions, both physical and emotional and mental. We are hearing reports of various forms of abuse. So it's not bad enough that they're already there. There are forms of abuse happening as well. And then with trauma, we always have the risk of human trafficking, where kids slip through the cracks, paperwork is lost, and this is not just like, oh, this is what's happening in the world. This is like me speculating. This is actually reports of this, kids being actually shipped away. Let's see. Okay, and then finally, reunification. There was an executive order. The American Civil Liberties Union has been doing an amazing job with petitioning for getting this not just in place, but also getting it executed. So the ACLU is involved with this. And what happens after they're reunified? Are they relocated? So relocation issues, deportation issues. And then also afterwards there's rehabilitation. So the trauma that was happening before, there's rehabilitation challenges now, and then also recovery. So when you tear a family apart and then you put it back together, there's consequences after that. There are ripples after that. So this is just kind of a really quick rundown of how you kind of tease this out. So we started with family separation as the issue for today's demo. We sketch it out. What's going on with family separation? It looks like, so families are entering the US, they're being detained and separated. The kids specifically are being held in cages. There's trauma that's happening all around, not just for the kids, but for the parents as well. And then currently there's efforts to reunify those families. And then we expand it and blow those out as well. So we start to get into the nitty-gritty of all the different complexities and pieces of this larger issue. So over here, while we do this part of the process, it is really important for you to remember what is truth and what is truth. And what I mean, truth versus truth. So capital T, lower t. Now, the way that I sketched this out and the way that I identified these sub-facets and whatnot, this is based on my awareness of the situation. Me as a human being, me as a resident and citizen of the United States. This is like based on the news that I consume, the updates that I consume, all of that. So this is based on my truth, lowercase t. My truth is that this is how I understand this situation to be. Like I said earlier, while we're going this, we try and be objective as possible, saying, this is what happens. This is what is happening. This is not how I feel about it. This is simply what is actually happening, and this is what I know to be happening. There's a lot more happening with family separation than I know, because I'm not an immigration lawyer. I am not related to someone who's crossing the border. Yes, I am the children of immigrant parents, but they came here a long time ago. And this was not my process. This was not something that happened to me or to my family. So I only have limited insight into this particular topic. And this is the case for every complex topic. There's always more to the story. So it's important for us to acknowledge that when we're working with this, this is our truth, lowercase t. To power up how you go through this process is to try and get to the capital case T, capitalized truth. Because this is where we start asking questions, we start working with experts, we start doing more research and digging in, because there's nothing worse than approaching a problem without all the facts. You're not going to provide a solution that is as effective. You're not going to be, you're going to be frustrated because you're not going to be dealing with the whole picture. So as we go through the rest of the spectrum method, it's important to remember that you are working with the truth, the lowercase truth. We strive in this process when we want to take action, when we want to get involved, we strive to do the uppercase truth. Get more facts, get more information so that you better understand comprehensively the larger issues. Okay, so now that that's there, step number 3 in you reclaiming your agency and you claiming power and how to affect change, decide who you want to help. Who you want to help. One of the biggest frustrations, let me go over here. One of the biggest frustrations of folks who are in a position where they're upset at the way things are and they feel helpless and they don't know what to do, part of that is because we feel an obligation to save everyone. You want to save everyone, you want to help everyone, but that's not how it works. For us to start creating changes, you've got to start with affecting change immediately. And that doesn't mean all of a sudden you are responsible for all of these families. That's not for you to take on. For you to take on is to play your role and determine what that role is in the first place. So starting small, starting bite-size, getting momentum, and then building larger is going to be much more effective than sitting around feeling like, I can't fix family separation on my own. Well, yeah, of course. So once we acknowledge that this is not your, this is not your superwoman moment, this is not your Wonder Woman, I'm going to come and save everyone with one solution to all of this, it's defeatist. It's not going to help you actually help other people. So step 3 in the spectrum method, once you plan it all out and understand where you're coming from, decide who you want to help. Do you want to help the lawmakers? Do you understand who's involved? The lawmakers, the Border Patrol agents, the law enforcement, the kids, the parents, the whoever else is involved. Choose a group of people to help. Then you can focus, then you can start to put into place solutions that are actually targeted to real change and tangible progress. Number 4, ID, where is your heart? So it's all well and good for you to choose a group of people saying, okay, in this whole process, in this whole situation, I'm going to choose this group of people to help, but really my heart lies elsewhere. That's not going to help you. Part of this whole, being an agent of change, being someone who is helping other people, being someone who is affecting change on a massive level means collecting all of your motivators, collecting all of and bolstering your position. So that means understanding what your motivators are. What are you motivated by? Using them to your advantage. Who are you called to help? So if you're choosing, well, I want to work with parents, but I think it's easier for me to work with law enforcement, or I'm working with law enforcement, but my heart really lies with the kids. understand and have that awareness. Where is your heart? Because where your heart lies is going to be a big factor in how effective you are and how fully you're able to show up. Unintentionally, subconsciously, it starts to take a toll. So understand who you want to help, but identify also where your heart lies. Also, where your heart lies is not just about who you're helping, it's about how you're choosing to get involved. So for example, if you want to be part of the rehabilitation and recovery process for kids, if you've chosen the kids, then you have to realize that what comes along with rehabilitation and recovery, you're going to hear a lot of traumatic stories. You're going to take on a lot of energy. And for some people, if you're not trained to do this, or if you're not used to doing this, that can be very draining, and it's going to bring you down and help you, and it's going to hurt your chances of showing up fully and being the best person for this particular job. Maybe because of what's involved, maybe your heart is better suited to help with policy change. Just something to be aware of. So it's not just, okay, here's an opportunity for me to jump in and do my thing. Let's be smart about this. Let's be strategic about this. If you want to work with kids, if your heart is not in the direct one-on-one contact, actually rehabilitation or like working with the trauma side of things, then don't choose that part of the puzzle to jump into, because we want to make sure that you are as full and as useful as possible if you're going to get involved. So something just to keep in mind. And then finally, 5 is the rest of the method. So right now, this is the full extent of the spectrum method that I'm going to go through today, just for time's sake, and because the rest of it would take a while. So number 5 is to evaluate your resources and your values. What do I mean by that? Resources means, what do you have available to you? What do you have in terms of time, in terms of finances, in terms of skills, in terms of training, things like that. What resources are going to be useful for the various steps of this particular method? And then also, where are your values? This is kind of in line with identifying where your heart is. You know, what are you being called to do? What are your values? Are your values to do with family? Are they to do with compassion? Are they to do with freedom? Or even things like timeliness, organization? Where do your values lie? Because understanding your core values are going to be part of your toolkit that you show up to managing and planning your involvement with helping to tackle huge issues. So what we do essentially is understanding yourself at a deeper level, using that tactically to fit yourself into some stage of the larger issue. So it's not just, we go from, oh my God, it's so terrible that this is all happening. We go from that place of feeling helpless and feeling like it's too big for us to play a part in. We tease it out, we put it on a spectrum, we see, okay, what's actually involved with this? What's actually involved with family separation? All of these different aspects, identify how complex this is, and then when you blow those out individually, you see, okay, well, I'm not gonna individually end family separation, but you know what I could do? I'm really close with my senator, or I have access to someone who's working with the ACLU, or you know what, I have some extra time that I can help create awareness around, the trauma that's happening, or I can, you know, depending on where your skills, your available resources, and your priorities lie, you can get involved on a very individual scale to support your work to combat a larger issue that you care about. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. I know it's a lot to deal with on, a Thursday morning. So I'm gonna download this video and post it up to YouTube. It'll be available, and I'm gonna run through this method twice a month from here on out. So it's June now, but it's July next week. I'm going to be doing this twice in July. Stay tuned to my Robin Eckersley coaching page for dates And feel free if you want to, today we just dealt with family separation because it's big and it's in the news all the time these days, so it's top of mind. But if there's a particular topic that you want me to spectrum method out, just send me a message and I'll be happy to use it as a demo topic. But understand that this is a process, and understand at the end of the day, we're doing the best we can. And this all operates under the belief that you can do something, that every individual can do something. It doesn't rest the responsibility for ending, whether it's family separation or human trafficking or world hunger. That responsibility doesn't fall to you as an individual. But what does happen is that you can move from a place of helplessness and a place of feeling like you have no role, even though you have all this emotion and passion around a particular subject. You can still play a part in the solution. And this is just one way to do it. I hope it was helpful, and I know I ran through it. It goes way deeper than this when we actually work together on it. So yeah, I'm here to support you. I hope this was useful, and I will be talking to you in July about this. Thanks so much, guys.